Welcome, friends, to this episode of the Everyday Educator Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Bailey, and I'm excited to spend some time today with you as we learn together, encourage one another, and explore the delights and challenges that make homeschooling the adventure of a lifetime. Whether
Mm.
you're just considering this homeschooling possibility or deep into the daily delight of family learning, I believe you'll enjoy thinking along with us. But don't forget, although this online community is awesome, you'll find even closer support in a local CC community. So go to classicalconversations.com and find a community near you today. Well, listeners, I have a treat for you today. Delise and I have one of our favorite podcast guests with us today, Amy
Mm.
Jones. Amy is always so encouraging and has a wealth of experience as a homeschool mom and now grandmom. And
Yes.
so we are going to talk about, something that blesses and plagues us all. We're going to talk about habits today. We're going to talk about good habits and, by extension, unfortunately, probably bad habits. So, Amy, I'm not saying which category you are best suited to help us explore. I'm sure I can chime in on plenty of bad habits. But
Mm.
thank you for coming to be with us today.
Oh, I'm delighted. This is always one of my favorite things to do is to kind of chat with you. And now I get to chat with Delise. So super
Yeah.
about that. This is going to be a great time.
I know. Delise, I love talking to moms in all different stages of motherhood and homeschool life. And so I'm going to be picking your brain as you have one on the way and one precocious preschooler who is absolutely precious. I resonate with what you're going through, but it's because my grandson is almost the same age as Leo. So I appreciate your perspectives on habits. And we'll all just throw in with what God has taught us over the years. And hopefully, listeners, it will resonate with you and maybe be a big encouragement. I want to ask both of you. Amy, I'll start with you. I'll put you on the hot seat first, though.
Mhm.
What are some good habits that you have? And
Mm.
then, if you will share with us a bad habit or two that you have, we'll just
Yeah,
start out being real with each
there
other
you
from
go.
the very beginning.
Well, a good habit that I've developed actually came because I went through a period of time where I just woke up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
I'm becoming an older person. So, you go through that period of time where you just don't sleep. And so I
Yes.
realized pretty quickly that I could either fret and worry in the middle of the night, which is quite natural bad habit for me.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
someone suggested one way they put themselves back to sleep is to pray around the world. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So
Ooh.
start in your hometown and just start praying for people and then move to wherever. And then the next missionary, and I found that opportunity
Hmm.
produced a habit of when I recognize a time of space that I'm maybe alert, that I can fill that space with just talking to God. And it's so interesting because it started as sort of a negative. I wanted to put myself back to sleep.
Right.
By
Right.
sound great and spiritual, but it ended up being just this really delightful time of spending a quiet space with the Lord, and then it just became just a natural habit that I actually started looking forward to, and it
Oh, that's
reminded me of when
great.
my third son was born, Lisa. They would, you nurse all night and you're tired and you just
Yes.
beg.
Oh, my word.
I remember because he was my third, I knew that during the day I wouldn't have this really sweet one-to-one time with just him. And so
Yes.
I remember thinking, I really am looking forward to just spending some time with Sam at 4 o'clock in the morning
That's
because I don't.
beautiful.
And I felt like the Lord just reminded me, kind of brought
Mhm.
that, resurrected that memory for me, and just
Oh,
helped me see, it may be inconvenient. Habits usually are when we first start them,
that's
um,
wise.
but it's just, yeah, you just kind of see the Lord's hand. So that wasn't, because I'm a super spiritual person. It's just because I couldn't insomnia, but it was a opportunity to develop a good habit. So the Lord was
That's
really
so
cool.
cool. That
That
it's
was,
the Lord's graciousness to you that
yeah,
your plea, your cry for
yeah,
help became a really
yeah.
good habit that blessed you.
Mm.
That is super cool, Amy. Um, I'm gonna try that. I have different things that I've been trying to use to go back to sleep at night, but I'm gonna try that one. So, okay, so reveal the truth to us. Tell us one bad
Oh,
habit.
oh goodness.
Just one.
Okay, well, that's
You
good.
probably
Um,
only have one,
So,
so
and habits are things that bad habits are things you shouldn't do. It's not an illusion or I just
right.
don't understand. It's just I just don't do it. And part of it is really I have a hard time drinking enough water. I mean, everywhere
Okay.
I go, it's like drink water, drink water, drink. And I hate water. I hate drinking water, and I'd rather drink a glass of iced tea or a hot cup of coffee. But I I just ebb and flow with that so badly, and it's just my laziness and I'm kind of rebellious about it, to be honest with
Oh,
you.
yeah. Yeah.
I think it's
Yep.
a really bad attitude I have about, and I know all the benefits. I can quote it to you. And isn't
Oh,
that
of
really what
course.
bad habit is?
Yeah.
What happens? I know all the benefits of exercising every day.
And
I
I
know all the
just don't
benefits.
wanna do it.
I just don't want to do it. So,
Yeah.
so I'm having to. I need to reinforce. Like I don't have a glass of water beside me, which
That
I
is
should.
so funny. That's so funny. Well, we'll probably have 500 people write in giving you all the tips that they know that will
Yeah.
help you love water. So that's awesome. Thank you for telling us that, though. All right, Delise, now you're on the hot seat. What's a good habit that you have, or a couple of good habits that you have?
Well, I hesitate to even call this a quote good habit, although I know it is a good thing. I
Right.
just don't think that it's a one size fit all. So I will
Sure.
say that before I say this so that no one thinks that I'm trying to sit up on my high horse as I proclaim my one good habit in life.
Yes.
But the good habit that I've cultivated is to just spend time in the Word with the Lord in the morning, like first thing, really when I first wake up.
Good.
And honestly, it's kind of come to me by way of necessity. I was
Yes.
raised by a morning person. I was homeschooled by a
Yes.
morning person. I'm
Yes, you
telling you,
were.
there was never a time. She's both an insomniac and a morning person. So
Yes.
wake
Yes.
up in the middle of the night,
She's
she's awake.
always there.
Exactly, she would be awake. So my mom modeled that for us, and so
Yeah.
did my father. He always got to work very early, and so that was part of the pattern
Yep.
of our lives when I was a child. But then I learned that I really didn't even like being around myself if I hadn't had
Ooh.
that quiet time
Mhm.
to just settle my mind, settle my
Yep.
heart, remember,
Yep.
what's actually important and talk to the Lord.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it's been a necessity. And obviously I love Jesus, so it's great to spend
Yes.
time with him. You can do that whatever time of day is best for you, but
Mhm.
I need to
Mhm.
do that in the morning. And having kids has really made that look very interesting. I
Yes.
was thinking about what you said, Amy, with nursing or just being up in the middle of the night with your son. And that was still, my day would start at 2 a.m. because that would be the
Right.
time
Right.
that I had
Mhm.
to do it. And that's been a really sweet thing. So that would be a good habit. But on the flip side,
Mm.
while I may pop up and grab my Bible, you better believe I usually forget until around noon to make my bed.
Oh,
Mhm.
And I don't know. I know that there was the same amount of effort of trying to get me
that's
to
so
remember. It's
funny.
just not a gut reaction for me. I want it made. I make it every day, but I usually just don't notice that it has not been done
Yes.
until my day is rolling. Breakfast is made. So many things have happened, but the
Yes.
bed is still in disarray. So
Yes, that's so funny.
You live
yeah.
your lifetime, Delise,
Uh-huh.
until noon. So remember that.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. I bring up those examples of like how I got the habits because I wonder, Amy, how you did develop your habits and how you have cultivated a habit. Is it something that you've tried to do or something that you fell into? And what do you think made those habits habits?
Those are good questions. I think, well, there's a variety of ways, right? Because you have your morning quiet time, and you know that that discipline is is so good for you, right? Like you just said, it frames your
Mhm.
entire
Mhm.
day, um, and yet, part of the habit is kind of a yearning. Like
Hmm.
you have a
Yes.
vision for what you hope to be or who
You
you hope to do,
aspire.
and
Mhm. It's an
you aspire.
aspiration. Mhm.
Exactly, and a good writer I like to read is Dallas Willard. He said, "You always have a vision, right? And then you have to sit down and count the cost. What is that vision going to cost me? It's going to cost
Mhm.
me some time, some focus,
Some
maybe
sleep.
it's going to cost something. Yeah, a sleep.
Mhm.
It's going to cost
Mhm.
some thinking. Maybe I have to put something aside in order to do it." And he said the trick, the key, I guess, is, am I willing to pay the cost? He said,
Yes.
we can have so many, and think about it. I think of my craft closet is full of
Yes.
potential good habits and ideas that never
Absolutely.
bring their fruition. I've just
Yep.
piddled with them, I haven't really created or become an artist in that way, practiced enough. But
Mhm.
so we can come up with the ideas, and we can either sit down and kind of count the cost, so to speak, like this is what this will require. And I think linking the task, we were talking about that yesterday, the task with the outcome, and then really being deliberate. Do
Mm.
I want to? Am I willing to pay that price? And
Right.
that's wisdom. That's where wisdom comes. And I
Mhm.
think so. Habits get developed because you are prudent in the way you're applying. Basically, a habit is an expression of your value. So, what is
Hmm.
my value? And so I'm linking a behavior with the value of what I hold is important to me. And so they're a
Mhm.
reflection. And you know these people. It sounds like your mom is one of these people. You watch their life and they're wise people, but you can see the gears working throughout their day of the wisdom because of the habits and
Yeah.
disciplines incorporated. So that to me, and mainly I develop habits because I'm not as wise, and sometimes I'm just desperate. I'm just, you just get to the point of
Right.
desperation,
Mhm.
and you
A
think,
way to make life work. You gotta do something
yeah,
to make life work. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
got you.
So yeah,
I got
so
you.
that's what I would just say. It's kind of a culmination, but I would say if you can hang out with wise people,
Mm.
Ooh.
boy, it's like watching a master at work, you know.
Yeah. That's
So
really wise, and that comment is really wise. So, I it may be good if you want to develop a habit, if you see value and you
mhm,
aspire to a certain habit, like Amy said, go hang out with somebody who has that
yes,
habit
yeah,
already, and they will be a huge encouragement to you.
mm,
And at least there'll be somebody, traveling in the same direction. And
yes.
that's always easier, especially if it's hard to break new ground. Um,
Mhm,
as I was thinking about the whole idea of habits, we are word people here at Classical Conversations. And Amy and I have had some conversations about habits and about um, the roots of the
mm,
word habit and where it came from. So give us a little bit of the etymology, Amy, that you discovered of habits, and of tell us a little bit about that so that we'll have that knowledge too. But what does that tell us about the habits that we have or the habits that we want to develop?
Mhm.
that is, I would have never thought about it unless you had kind
Mm,
of piqued my interest about it. So thank you for doing that.
yeah.
Because as I was looking at doing some research about the etymology, the word habits comes from a Latin word. It's back like in 13th century. We won't get too much in the weeds, but
Yeah.
habitude, which really means like to garb or clothe yourself.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that what you wear on the outside, like a nun's habit or a monk's
Mhm.
habit,
Mhm.
reflects what's on the inside. And that actually, this is very interesting because that actually came from Aristotle in the idea that you that a habit creates a virtue. It's very tied to a virtue. Like I and his idea was you if you're generous with your stuff, you become a generous person. And I feel like that's really helpful, that what you
Yeah.
think and
Yeah.
put into play, you become. And that's close. I mean, of course, we can't do that without Christ, right? So
Right.
Apostle
Absolutely.
Paul fills that in with Colossians about putting things off and putting things on, and that's by the
Mhm.
Spirit of Christ. So
Mhm.
thankfully, we have the Holy Spirit that sanctifies us. And then, but what I found that was really interesting, because most people, when you think of habits, they think of exercise and drinking water and behavior
Yes.
that don't
Yes.
have anything to do with virtue.
Yep.
And that came about in 1890. There was a professor at Harvard. He was professor, the first chair of their psychology department. And it was the first time that he used the word habits to describe instinctual behavior. It was a very big push for
Mhm.
post, including God and
Right.
removing God from all science. And
Right.
so he intentionally chose that word to describe domesticated animals, which he includes man as, producing behavioral
Wow.
habits instead of instinct. And that's
Right.
sort of how we think of habits as just behaviors, but not really relating to anything moral or ethical or virtuous.
Mhm.
And I think that's where I love Classical Conversations, because they captured that original meaning,
We
and they
redeem it.
you redeemed it. So thank you. And so now a habit is such a lovely idea of garbing, dressing, and clothing yourself in a behavior or condition of the heart and mind. So there it's like linking it back to this
Mhm.
idea that virtue, that we can practice virtue by practicing these, by developing habits. I just love that. I thought, thank you, Classical Conversations, for
That
redeeming that instead
that's
of just.
really beautiful.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
and that helps us think about, uh, we do want to develop all kinds of good habits with our kids, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But
Mhm.
we want them to have the habit of making their bed, maybe, or
Yeah.
doing their devotion, or helping with the chores, but we also want
Mhm.
them to have the habit of mercy, the
Yes.
habit of kindness, the habit
Mhm,
of looking to include the left out person, the
mhm,
habit of
Mhm.
speaking up in the face of injustice. So, those are all behaviors. And, like you said, Amy, attitudes of the heart that we
mhm,
put on in order to become the men and
mhm.
women that the Lord has called us to be.
Yes.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It really makes me think about that verse that says to put on the mind of Christ.
Yes.
In
Hmm.
fact, that's a choice that you make as a
Yes.
believer.
Mhm,
You have the mind of Christ, but you let, his peace rule your heart and
yes,
Yes.
mind. You have to There's a
Yes.
yielding and a cooperation there. And as
mhm,
I think about, the generation I'm in of
Mhm.
parenting, I
Mhm.
think we're being very tempted to flop the order.
wow,
Um, and when I listen to you say, you practice it, it's the same as spiritual practices,
oh,
honestly. These
Right.
virtues that we're talking
Yep.
about, the putting on of
Absolutely.
the habitude. Um, you practice it before it's actually internalized.
yeah,
But these days, they talk more about, don't tell your child to apologize. Talk
mm,
to them about being sorry and wait for them to
mm,
feel sorry, and
Right.
sometimes a small child, especially, doesn't have the capacity to have the kind of empathy that it would
Right.
that they need in
They
order to
they
actually
yeah,
may
come up
not
with an
feel
apology.
sorry for many years.
There you
Yeah,
go. But that doesn't negate your opportunity as a parent to help them to have that gut reaction practice, and then they
Right.
can feel sorry later
Right.
and also know how to apologize.
yeah,
And those
Right.
two things will come together
Yes.
later in life. And so I love that you're articulating that and shedding light on that, because I think it is really important that we remember that some of the best and most precious virtues are practiced before they are
yeah,
internalized.
Yes.
And that's not a bad thing. That
Yes.
doesn't mean it's coming from a
Yes.
bad place in your heart. And
No.
so that's just beautiful. I do want to know what some specific habits that you have tried to cultivate in your family, in academics, in your home have been over the years.
I don't know. I'd be happy to answer that,
Yeah.
and I know you have some too. Yeah, I think the most important habit that, well, a very important habit that we cultivated is the habit of a rhythm of our family a
Mm.
day.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
thought that gave me a structure in which good things happen. I kept thinking of that Chesterton quote where he says, "Rule and order is set,
Yeah.
so good things can run wild." And I love that.
I love
Um,
that. That's so
because
fun.
my household felt at that point sometimes that things were running wild. But, um, but I think what I loved is that we had a rhythm. We had a day. We get up in the morning. We they actually had to make their bed, Delise,
Deal.
and get
My
dressed.
girls
Or
too.
two things they couldn't lounge around their pajamas. And then breakfast, and then we always started the day with devotions, and
Mhm.
they had to do chores and devotions. And we
Mhm.
just it was a certain time that we started. I found that very helpful. Like, okay,
Mm.
8:45, we're sitting, and for us, it was a little place in our home. That's where we came. It was a place and a time. And in my mind, it was like ding, because otherwise I'd be putting in a load of laundry or unloading the
Right.
dishwasher or answering that phone call or whatever.
Mhm.
It's like, nope, everybody, we start here and we start before the Lord. And it
Yeah.
wasn't long and drawn out, but it was a
Right.
lovely time, which is being quiet and still. And then we started our academics, and we usually did maths first because we were all fresh, and I could
Right.
think through things, and then fine with and then just went through the habits of the day. I have three sons, so we ate frequently. Like there was always some kind of
Yes.
snacks on the table because people were hungry all the time.
It
I don't know.
fueled
And
the rest of your good habits. Yeah.
yeah. I thought, well, they nurse every 2 hours, and I guess they just keep eating every 2 hours.
That's
It felt like it
right.
was going on forever. Um, and then we always had a good smattering of some outside time that we had to move. We had to do some
Yeah.
moving, and then gathering for lunch and kind of checking in. Always, as they got older, after devotions, we would each say, "Okay, what's your goal for the day? What do you hope to plan? How
That's
can I
good.
help you achieve what you want?" And so I just jot that down and then just check around lunch. How's that going? Can I help you? Do you need more paper in the printer? Whatever it is,
Mhm.
and then ending. And then I had an ending time of the day. And it was really important that they were turned loose. I felt
Yes.
like
Yes.
at 2 o'clock, no matter what happened, if the house was blowing up, school was done. We
Right.
laid it aside
Right.
because as homeschoolers, it can be endless.
Because
You
you're
can always
never away from it.
stop
Yeah.
and you're
You could
never
always
finished.
be with it. Yeah. You're
You're,
never done.
you're never done. And I feel like that verse about being content, practicing
Yes.
contentment is a great habit to end the day in your mind saying, "Thank you, Father, for what
Mm.
you allowed us to do. And I will choose contentment," instead of just beating ourselves up with guilt or with just kind of beating our kids up with guilt.
Mhm.
What your attitude is on your face of just disappointment or
Right.
discouragement
Right. Or
is
anxiety.
anxiety.
Mhm.
It communicate. I mean, who wants to, I just,
Yeah.
and they can't do anything about it.
right.
that they're helpless to help.
Good.
So to really, really practice, that was a real discipline for me to not be
Mm.
complaining and grumbling, but to end the day well and to thank the Lord for what He allowed me to do. So
Oh, so
it
good.
it is, but man, that took a while though. It took a lot of
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
habits to break.
Well, I mean, good habits sometimes take a long time to develop.
Yeah.
We had a lot of the same habits, get up.
Mhm.
Our girls had to make their bed and get dressed too. And we had devotions first, but some of our habits that became the sweetest,
Mm,
um, centered around the end of the day.
mm,
Even when, as they got older, we always read as a family before bed. And when they were little, they got to pick the books. They each got to pick a couple if they were picture books. And we read as a family, even as they got older. But then when they went upstairs to bed, um, we had a couple of habits. I hope I don't get teary thinking about this because my kids are grown now, and it was such a sweet time. They went to bed and they each had their own room, but they wanted happy thoughts and a story every night. They wanted, um, and it started out as a way to ward off bad dreams. Um,
Mhm.
so I asked them 3 questions every night because I wanted to know that they were okay. I remember, a lot of times my greatest fears jumped on me in the dark of the night
mm,
after the light was out and I was by myself. Then, I just worried about things as a little girl, and so I would always ask them, um, "Are you happy in your heart?
oh,
Are
yeah.
you healthy in your body? Are you
Mm.
hopeful in your spirit?" Because
Mm,
something about turning off the light at night made them tell me the little things that had the niggling worries that had been at them during the
mm,
day. So, are you happy in your heart? Did anybody hurt your feelings today? Was it me?
mm,
Did mama hurt your feelings? Are you happy in your heart? Are you sad or worried about something? Are you healthy in your body? Okay, tell me now if your legs hurt or if your throat is scratchy or if your tummy is bothering you.
mm,
And then are you hopeful in your spirit? Do you
mm,
know that things are going to be good tomorrow? Do you feel generally happy about what
Mm.
lies before you? And then always wanted happy thoughts. So we gave them 3 happy thoughts every night of things that had happened during the day that would make them giggle or smile. And then they wanted stories. So I would give them a story prompt and they would start telling themselves that story and they would go to sleep with that
mhm,
story playing in their mind. It was like a dream
Mm.
seed, I guess.
yeah,
Um,
yes.
and that was a habit that I don't know. I don't really remember how it started, but I
Mm,
know it was from
Mm.
the time they were little until I still sometimes will ask them with a smile, "Are you happy in your heart? Are you
mm,
healthy in your body? Are you hopeful in your
Mm.
spirit?" As
good.
grown-up girls who have families of their own now.
Mhm. So lovely.
That's
Love it.
beautiful.
Mhm,
Just a very fun thing. Um, and
mhm.
it turned out that they were it was a sweet habit, but it was practical too. They were very
Mhm,
useful because, like I said, it helped me head off I'm going in the bed and now I need a drink of water and now my head hurts and now my leg hurts and now we have all these things. So the cool thing is that good habits are sometimes very useful to us. Um, and as homeschool parents, the
Mm.
habits that we inculcate in our students can be very helpful as we learn as a family, as we're building our family culture of learning. So, Amy, talk a little bit about what do you think are some good habits that our listeners can begin to cultivate even when their children are very young that will help establish that culture of family learning?
Well, I mean, we can't not leave out the core habits. Of
True.
That's
Very
It's
true.
they're
Very true.
absolutely, uh, fantastic, honestly. First of all, the core habits of grammar, which are, naming, attending, memorizing, expressing, and storytelling that we use for classical conversations to describe the art of grammar. It's not just a nice cliche. It
Right.
really
Right.
it's very descriptive of where children, young children especially, we see, but it's for everybody. This is how we learn
Right.
things, how we
Absolutely.
build our knowledge. We do the same activities. But what happens with what's so perfect about it with little guys, they just naturally do it. They're just
Mhm.
natural attenders. They want to
Yeah.
know the names of
Yeah.
everything. What's that? What's that? What's that? Why is that? They
Yeah.
memorize things, like they know sometimes things you were like surprised by, like commercials and stuff. You're like, where'd you get
Yeah.
that word? Or sometimes
Right.
words, like you said, horizon. I think you were sharing that the other day. And
Yeah.
just how Gideon, your 2-year-old, used that word, horizon.
Right.
And because they like it, they memorize
Right.
things. They're like little magnets. It's wonderful. And then they're just such expressors. Anything that's in
Yes.
them, they have no filter. It comes
Right.
whether they're going to dance in the
In the
I've had
grocery store. Yes.
the
Oh my
grocery
gosh.
store. I've had them yell out in church, "Amen," which is great. Uh, and or they had a prayer request, or it's just so lovely, or they're delighted, or they're really sad.
Right.
When you look at their little face, or they're troubled, or they're worried. So
Mhm.
they express themselves very naturally, and they love, love, love to tell their stories. My 2-year-old
Yeah.
grandson was telling a long story. His mother videoed him the other morning. They have their little talk time in the morning. Their 2-year-old,
Yeah.
they get up. He gets up really early with mom when she wants to have some time by herself. She has 4 other children. So she gets very little time alone. But Samuel gets up, and he was telling a long story about the mean dog, which they don't have a mean dog, but he was outside the door, and it just went on and on and on. And so it was so delightful because they love sharing
Yes. Yes.
life with you, and you're one
Mhm.
of the most important people in their life. So
Yes.
you get
Mhm.
the
That's
privilege of a
true.
front row seat. You get to listen to all their little thoughts and their sweetness and how they're trying to make sense of this world. And as a parent and now as a grandparent, there are things that your children will say that
Mm.
you have never considered. And
Yeah.
they are
Oh, my
wise
word.
things. They ask good questions, and all of a sudden you're brought up short. You're like, well, that
Mhm.
is something I never noticed. I never realized. They are just like megaphones of wonder. So you
Oh,
just have to
yeah.
tune your ears. It's wonderful. So the core habits, I would say, if you have a catalog, or if you're on
Mhm.
any blogs on classical conversations, to read up on those, because you're already doing it. You're
Yeah.
Mhm.
already helping children attend to things and recognizing them. They're already integrating all their senses. They're already expressing things and telling you stories. So I think practicing it's really you. It's not them. It's you
Right.
practice the habit of helping them recognize, and helping you recognize and slow down. There's something wonderful here. Let's explore it. And
Ooh.
and God is so gracious because He's given us this wonderful creation, and it's an invitation for us to know Him more. Like, what do we see about God here? This is
Mhm.
fascinating,
Mhm.
and that's what changes my heart.
Yes.
It they don't know any different. They think God is great, and they think He's going to show us everything.
Mhm.
But sometimes I'm the one that needs that reminder, and that's why I think the core habits work both ways. It's
Yeah.
not you doing it. It's a two-way street. So,
But
uh,
how wonderful to get
mhm,
them into the practice, and it becomes just the way they look at the world.
yes,
It's
yes,
Yeah.
just the way, and when they see you practicing those habits too, they don't have the idea that when I'm older, I'll learn a different
yeah,
way. And so that's
no,
Mhm.
beautiful. Those are the foundational ways that like you said, everybody can learn that way, and everybody
mm,
can stay connected to the wonder of the world when we get really basic with that. So those are great habits to begin. Even with little kids. Delise, I'm sure you're practicing those with Leo already.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool for me to hear you talk about that because in my mind, I think to myself, yeah, because you were made for this.
Yes.
That's how God
Yes.
set it up. You were
Yes.
made for this. That's why parents can educate their children because they were made to do that. There is an orchestrator of the whole
Mhm.
story,
Yeah.
and he
Mhm.
created you with senses and the ability and the curiosity to find out more about the world, and in doing so, find out more about him. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, Leo is very curious. He has lots of ideas, lots of thoughts. He's very expressive, just like you're describing your grandchildren. And it is true that when you begin to train yourself, you cultivate the habit of seeing life again through a child's eyes. It
Yes.
really does change the way that you interact, the way that you interact. That's the word I want.
Mhm. Mhm.
Fun word. The way that you interact with the Lord,
Mhm.
and with his people. And I know that the two of you have been working on an enormous project, honestly, for months, and you're almost done with it. And it has everything to do with this concept of having a habit. Will you tell us more about it?
Oh, yeah. Well, Lisa can probably describe it more. She's been working on this for probably, I don't know how long, Lisa, it's been in
It feels
your mind.
like forever.
It's been a seed in your mind, but yeah, we're putting together a book called The Habits, and it's to explain and kind of flesh out what do these habits look like, maybe in different strands like history, geography, math. How do we kind of pique the interest and help parents? It's really recognizing what they're doing and then how to incorporate that practice in these different areas, but also just giving parents and readers, actually anybody, including grandparents, just a vision for how we are created as image
Mhm.
bearers of God, and how the classical skills really naturally fit with that. I think really helping us make those connections, and that they're not just academic, these are life giving, lifelong,
Mhm.
and time tested, as they say. And it really is true. The classical skills, just incorporating those, we've seen the benefits of those for hundreds of years, and
Mhm.
we've just had a decline in that, but kind of reawakening ourselves, and
Mhm.
it's delightful. And Lisa, you can speak more to
Well,
that.
I was going to say one of the purposes of the book is to encourage parents
Mhm.
that homeschooling is not some, well, I almost said it's not some hard thing, because some days
Mhm.
it is absolutely a hard thing. It
Mhm.
is the hardest job you will ever love.
Yes, that's a good
Um,
way to put
but but it is made up of chasing after God.
it.
Done
Yes,
well, homeschooling is chasing after God in all the ways that He is yearning to speak to us.
yes.
Um,
Mhm.
and the habit is designed to help parents find those easy, natural ways of exploring the world that God has made and the
Mhm.
word that he has given us,
Mm.
so that we can know him in all of the ways that are approachable, that and he has designed us to take in information about him through his world and through his word, because he made us able to learn. And those core habits are really great ways to learn about the Lord. As we look at his world, we see his characteristics embedded in it. And as we ask questions and as we attend to detail, our mind is just blown the
Mhm.
wonder comes to us. And so we are so eager to know him more and to find out more of what he's left for us to find in the world. And so the book is an encouragement for parents to love exploring God's world and his word as a family together. And it's an encouragement that it's not as hard as people have led you to believe it is. You do not need to have a degree in education. You don't need to have read all of the books on the Classical Conversations Bookstore to get started. Because, like Amy said, your kids are already super proficient in naming, attending, memorizing, expressing, and storytelling, because that is the way God made them to be. But guess what? You were a little kid like that too one time, and God made you to learn that way. And so it is still in there. It is still in you to love and to wonder and to luxuriate in steeping yourselves in the sights and the sounds, everything your senses will let you take in. And so all you need to do is take a deep breath and get out of your own way. Go outside and name everything that your child wants you to name. And if you don't know the name, I mean, my grandson now, he will look at me and say, "Look it up, Lolly." And as soon as we're back inside where the phone or the book is, he will remind me, "Look it up, Lolly." And so we'll have to find out. But guess what? We name it together, and we've
Yes.
already attended to all the little pieces. And he now has a memory peg. And there, I know in the next couple of days, he's going to say to me again, "Talk about horizons again," because it's in his mind and he has no problem expressing it. And so the book, The Habits, has been a labor of love for our team for many months. And I say it's a labor of love because parents, we want you to join us in celebrating that homeschooling your children is not hard. It's not hard in that we can all do it because God made us to learn. And he made us to learn with these habits. And they are going to make learning fun for you again as a parent as you allow it to open the world for you and your child. So I'm super excited about it if you can't tell. It's just,
That's awesome. Can't wait to get my hands on it.
I just get excited. I think it is very encouraging and it's super practical. And y'all will have another podcast, in 9 months about the book and give you all a lot of the skinny on it. But it's super practical because we have like sections where somebody might say, "Yeah, I don't really get expressing. I mean, I just don't. How would I even learn about history by expressing?" So there's like pages of bullet points that will help you know how you could learn more about history by expressing. And so it's super practical as well as super encouraging.
Yes.
Love that.
I think that, Amy, you already did a really good job of helping us to see how the 5 core habits help us to explore the world. I'm curious, Delise, if you have used any of these habits with Leo, because I know that y'all like to go outside and be outside exploring as much as you can.
That's such a good question. I mean, we definitely spend we spend the majority of our time on either end of the list.
Yes, yes, that is so true.
So we're either doing a lot of naming and attending, like a lot of that. And it's so sweet. And you're right that you have to remind yourself about it and not make yourself, but encourage yourself to name it all or to look at it all. It's no problem. We're so close to the ground. A little child will stop and look
absolutely.
at all the little ants who are walking along. And you think to yourself, what? Okay, we've seen the ants. Can we get
It's another ant,
but it's a different ant, actually. This one's red and black,
Right.
and,
Mhm.
and so
And
if
he's
you were to
doing
sit down.
something different.
Exactly, and look at it, there's an opportunity there, so we
Yep.
definitely do that. But then on the flip side, Leo really is a storyteller, and he loves
Mhm.
expressing. We've been talking a lot about, how to use your words, and that the fact that he
Mhm.
has a lot of
Oh,
words is a gift. It's something that God wants him
yes.
to steward.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so I've been telling him, if you don't know what to say, why don't you tell me a story?
Yes.
Like, if you
Yes. Oh, that's
you've never heard these
beautiful.
things that
I
you
love
shouldn't
it.
say, try to come up with something new that you can say. We're of
Yes,
course doing all the
right.
other things. You pour in Bible verses and you have them memorize stuff, but
Mhm.
sometimes
Right.
that's just not top of mind for a kid.
Mhm.
But they
Yeah.
do want to talk about something. So a
Yes.
story is very accessible, and that's been fun, of course, around the dinner table.
Yes.
We'll discuss our day throughout the day, and then we'll say, hey, why don't you tell daddy a
Tell
story
daddy.
about,
It's
Yes.
and that helps him to remember. And I guess that's memorization as well.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
yeah, we definitely use it all.
That's
it's such a
true.
I was thinking of this, Delise, when you were speaking, and Jennifer Courtney brought this up once in a conversation and I think this is so encouraging for parents that I just think about that. You get to name the world, that you
Mm.
Mm.
are so trusted by
Oh my
them.
goodness. Yes.
You are so trusted. You have been in trust, like they just come to you and you say, well, that is a cardinal. And they go, well, that's a cardinal. They don't
Right.
say think, "Well, I don't know, let me look that up," unless they get to be 9 or 10. When
Right.
they get to be 9 or 10, they may say, "Let me check on you on that." But
Right.
that's a different
Right.
stage. But I just think this is it's such a privilege. It's like
Yeah.
you're opening these little cabinet doors and going, "Well, have you ever thought about the color blue?" Or, "How about
Mm.
look at what this tastes like. Have you ever tasted the orange juice before?" Think about every experience that they have until they're about, 3 or 4, however long they are with you.
Yeah.
It's funneled through your idea. You tell them what's yucky, and you tell them what's wonderful, and you tell them what's not good, naughty, or
Right.
disobedient, and you frame their moral and ethical, like you don't take things away, you don't hit your brother. There's just all sorts of things that you're framing their
Mhm.
world, and they are
Mhm.
trusting you. They believe, and I think that's just yeah, I think that was the thing that Jennifer brought up, is the idea that there is truth.
Right.
There
Mhm.
is a word that it means this, and so you're establishing even this great foundation that there is truth in the world to be discovered that God has put there, that's
Mhm.
Mm.
objective and steady and solid. And
Mhm.
and there's not it's not just because mommy feels bad today, I made up a new
Right.
word. It's the way the Lord works. He gets the sun up every day,
Yeah.
and it's there, and we don't change it, and that's
Yeah.
what you are establishing that trusted relationship. It's so and that's not something that goes away, as Lisa will probably say.
Yeah.
Your adult children still trust you. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Oh
Mhm.
my goodness. What a privilege. So
Yeah.
I think for
Yeah.
parents, you do get like, that's another piece of gravel. Yes, that's gravel. That's another
Yeah.
piece of gravel.
That's
We have a
that
whole
is also
collection.
gravel. Yes. That's a hole in the gravel. Yes. Yes.
That's right. It's all on my table now.
That's
Yeah, you
right.
just kinda smile and you just
Right.
think, "Well, this is just a little hint of what is being built in them." So,
Oh, it's beautiful, Amy.
that was I remember Jennifer saying that, and it just
Yeah.
I've had it thinking about it, "Oh, what a privilege
Yeah.
that we get from
It
the Lord."
is. It is a huge privilege and it's a huge responsibility. And
Yes.
sometimes as parents, we're like, whoa, that is way too
Mhm.
much for
Mm,
me. It's not. God has called you to it. He has
yes.
given you the strength to do it. He will give you the wisdom to do
Yeah.
it. And as you cultivate some basic habits, the doing of it becomes possible. And
Yes.
so
Mhm.
build some good habits in yourself and into your children and let one of the habits be loving the Lord with their whole heart and mind
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
exploring the world he's placed them in. I know we have to bring our conversation to a close. I want to ask you each. We talked a lot about the 5 core habits today, and about a lot of other habits. And I want to ask you, and I'm going to ask our listeners to think about this too as you go about your day. What is a habit? What is a habit that you would like to cultivate more fully?
Mhm.
Amy, what's a habit you would like to cultivate more fully?
I think just recognizing God's work and being, and I think that leads to gratitude. I don't think we have
Mm,
to plunge, like, "Oh, I've
yeah.
gotta be grateful." I think
Yes.
recognizing His grace and work and just reflect, having time in the day that you pause and you think about it. I think that would be a lovely habit to
Mm,
not allowing that push, push, push,
yes.
to really mark out a Sabbath in the day to reflect on what God's, just see what's around me. Just open my eyes,
Oh, wow. That's great. That's
Mhm.
great.
It's
Delise, what about
wonderful.
you?
I think ours may be kind of similar, but I was going to use two different habits.
Mm,
Mhm.
Um, I'm thinking of both memorizing and storytelling
mhm,
because, the stories you tell yourself, like what happens in your mind, your
Oh, my
thoughts
word.
are probably the most important thing that you can steward as an individual.
mhm,
And I want to be even more aware
mhm.
of what I'm memorizing. What am I rehearsing in my
Good.
mind, in
Mhm,
my heart?
mhm,
Where am I meditating? What are those stories that I'm telling myself? Are they true? Is this what actually happened? Just factually speaking,
mhm,
is this God's perspective? Again, what actually happened just from another
Right.
angle?
Right.
Um, and also, there are things that happen in life that aren't always great, but I don't need to meditate on it, memorize it,
Right.
rehearse it in my heart and my mind. I can say his story over
Ah,
those
Right.
things.
yes.
And so that's kind of what you made me think. I love that question. It's something I want to keep
Yeah.
pondering.
Yeah. That's so interesting. We all landed kind of on the same space because Delise, I was
Mm,
actually thinking a habit that I want to cultivate is telling myself God's truth. When I start weaving the story in my head of what I have done or what somebody else has done to
mhm,
me, am I
Mhm,
telling myself um, true things? What
yeah,
story? And
mhm,
am I telling it from my aggrieved perspective or am I
mhm,
telling it from God's perspective? Because everything in life, God, life, I think from God's perspective, life does not happen to us.
right, right.
Life happens for us.
Mhm,
mm,
And if I could change my inner story to be, God has brought this for me, I
mhm.
think it might change my outward story as well. Mm.
mm,
That's
Something for us all
that's
to
good.
think about.
Yeah.
I just appreciate you guys sharing some thoughts about habits today. And, we have talked about several of us have mentioned different books that we've read or different resources that we have enjoyed. And as we close today, I want to remind you that Classical Conversations Bookstore is always there for you, and that this is the time of year when we have lots of new things coming out. Um, all of our new products are on sale for most of the month of April, April 1st through the 22nd. Some of the savings, y'all, are up to 30%. You can look for the Math Map digits and integers and fractions and 2 new sets of math flashcards. Math Map Monomials is out now. That's what your Challenge B students will be using in the fall. There's a brand new reasoning book that is absolutely gorgeous. Reasoning Together Philosophy helps students explore the great thinkers' ideas, and it leads our students. They'll be using it in community in Challenge 3. And then there are some more Copper Lodge classics like Pilgrim's Progress in the Copper Lodge library. You can look for all the new products if you just want to see what's new and what's on sale from April up to April 22nd. Explore all the new products at classicalconversations.com/what's new. So classicalconversations.com, what's new, and you can find all the new stuff. Now, go and think some deep thoughts. Ponder your habits and what habits the Lord would help you inculcate into your little children as you practice being an everyday educator.
Oh,
Delise and Amy, thanks for coming. Delise and I will see you guys next week. All right. Bye, y'all.